President Biden's own party is starting to have doubts about his run for a second term. A new poll from Monmouth University found that nearly half of voters, 48%, think that he will be replaced as the Democratic nominee. Now, one Democratic lawmaker is literally telling her constituents not to vote for the president. You could call it a mutiny among progressives. Mark Meredith, he's live at the White House with more details. Mark.
Kaylee, I sure am. Good afternoon to you. The congresswoman you are talking about is Rashida Tlaib of Michigan. She has been a very vocal critic of President Biden's foreign policy, specifically his support for Israel as it wages war against Hamas. She's also a member of the so-called squad, but she made quite a bit of news this weekend when she told supporters in Michigan she does not think they support the president in this month's Democratic presidential primary.
Right now, we feel completely neglected and just unseen by our government. If you want us to be louder, then come here and vote uncommitted.
Despite Tlaib's outrage, there are no major challengers to the president's renomination. You do have a congressman out of Minnesota running, but he has yet to gain any traction. Remember, Biden easily won the first presidential primary in South Carolina earlier this month. Tomorrow, he's heading out west to California to raise money for his reelection bid. Axios reports, though, here in D.C. is where we're going to see the reset. They say Biden officials see next month's State of the Union address as a big public reset moment, a chance to overcome or at least neutralize concerns about the president's age and vitality. And Democrats admit age will be an issue even after that.
President Biden's going to have to go out and litigate this election. Obviously, his age is going to be an issue in the election, but I think he's going to be able to run not just on the domestic accomplishments that he's had and an economy that's getting better every day.
But whether or not the American people will stand with that economic forecast, as the senator was just talking about, is yet to be seen. Yes, the unemployment rate's still low, 3.7%, but inflation, as we've seen in the latest government data, is still out there. And Kaylee, you can imagine a lot of families are still dealing with that when they go shopping at the grocery store or elsewhere. Kaylee?
No doubt about it. Mark Meredith, thank you. Tommy, you know, it strikes me that those around Biden seem to know there's a problem. John Favreau, he's an Obama aide, Pod Save America. He was out basically speculating if the party would be stronger if Biden was replaced at the convention. Ezra Klein wrote a New York Times piece fretting about his age. Apparently it was circulated among Democrat circles. There's a barrage of polling showing Trump prevailing over Biden. But I bring all that up because this is what's so curious to me. This is Politico Playbook this morning. Everyone seems to be worried except the Biden campaign. There has been rising frustration among top Democratic operatives that nearly any recommendation to change course is met with a pat on the head and a response akin to, thanks for the advice, kiddo. Within Biden's inner circle, there's a self-assuredness that they've been doubted over and over again and their approach will continue to work. That assessment is not shared across the broader Democratic coalition. So, I mean, what's in the drinking water at the Biden campaign?
Well, I will tell you this. Obviously, there's a lot of ego that goes along with President Joe Biden, and there has been for quite some time. And that's not just, I guess, special to Joe. A lot of older people don't want to be told they can't do the job anymore. I'm sure it's insulting. But when you're the president of the United States, you have to put the United States first. I don't think Joe Biden's ready to do that. But as far as people now saying that, oh, we have concerns about his age, they've always been concerned about his age. They were concerned about his age in 2020. They were just more easily able to hide his age in 2020 due to COVID. Now they're not going to have that cover. They're not going to have that shield. So what do? Well, now they're just dropping little breadcrumbs about what they're actually going to do. I don't think anybody, I certainly am not convinced that Joe Biden's going to be the nominee. It's just they have to breadcrumb it slowly but surely as we head into the spring and then, of course, the summer for their actual plan. And I don't think anybody really believes that Joe Biden, as much as he wants to hold on, is going to be able to hold on if the forces that be tell him it's time to go. When they say it's time to go, it'll be time to go.
Yeah, and the pop culture forces. I mean, Charlemagne the God, he had these thoughts about President Biden. He's not too impressed. Watch.
He should just be, I guess, if you want to call it, the brains of the operation behind the scenes. He has no main character energy at all. None. I don't think it has anything to do with age. You know, I think it has just everything to do with him. Like Donald Trump is, 3 years younger than President Biden, but he just comes off a lot more youthful. He comes off, like he has a lot more energy. And I always say this about them. Donald Trump seems more sincere about his lies than Joe Biden does about his truth.
Pretty brutal, Lisa.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how anyone could be enthusiastic about Joe Biden when he can barely string sentences together. But I want to stay on Michigan if I can. Rashida Tlaib's opposition to Joe Biden matters. I mean, Joe Biden won Michigan by 154,000 votes in 2020. Michigan has the largest Arab population of any country or of any state in the country. 2.1% of its demographics are Arab. There's something like 242,000 Muslim adherents. So that matters in the state of Michigan. And of course, she opposes him not over the age issue, but because of, some tacit support of Israel, which she seeks the destruction of. So that matters. And this opposition to Joe Biden from the Arab population, the Muslim population of the United States, could sway elections. Because, Kaylee, as you know, of someone who's worked on campaigns, I've worked on a lot of campaigns. Campaigns are one on the margins.
Yeah.
And those margins matter, and they're really going to matter in Michigan, a swing state.
And if it becomes a progressive mutiny, which it very well could, absolutely, it makes a difference. I am interested. I wanted to juxtapose these two together, Joe. Mm-hmm. Kamala Harris, there's been talk of her having just kind of like trying to revolutionize who she is in her image. Whether that works with the public, doubtful, remains to be seen. But I'm interested in this reinvention of her because she met with King Abdullah of Jordan last week. Clearly, foreign policy chops. Alexei Navalny dies. She speaks before Joe Biden speaks. Sure. And then there's this CNN piece that's out. And no doubt this was planted by her team, but it's interesting. Good press operation, nonetheless, for them to place this inside Kamala Harris's quiet effort to break through Biden campaign's information bubble. Multiple leading Democrats anxious about a campaign they fear might be stumbling past a point of no return say their conversations with Harris have been a surprising and welcome change after months of feeling sloughed off by the White House and the Biden campaign. She met with 6 governors last week to listen. I mean, this is clearly a reinvented Kamala Harris.
A reinvented Kamala Harris.
Yes.
A lot of reinventing going on.
Right? Yeah. We're up to 9.0 as far as the version.
9.0.
Yeah,
she can't even keep up.
Yeah.
9 times the charm, right?
She's the iPhone 15 of politicians. Look, you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube, and you can't put Humpty Dumpty back together. And the impression of Joe Biden is that he's too old and too far gone. And the impression of Kamala Harris is she is simply not ready to take on the presidency right now. Besides, she has a record to run on, that little thing called the border that we're talking about later, where she's still looking for the root causes, apparently. And when she speaks, there is an authenticity problem, just like Hillary Clinton had, just like Mitt Romney had. So they could plant these stories with CNN and say that, OK, this is the new Kamala Harris. People have made up their minds about her already, and they do not like the prospect of, if something happens to Joe Biden or he steps down, that she is the next president of the United States. Many Americans say, yeah, no.
You went exactly where I hoped you'd go.
I picked it for you.
Yes, she has to shore up her image because people see if he falters, she's the one standing in the wings. Yeah. Because he continues, Emily, to have moments like this. Watch Joe Biden.
The idea that we're going to walk away from Ukraine, the idea that we're going to let NATO begin to split is totally against the interests of the United States of America, and it is against our word we've given since all the way back to Eisenhower. So it's about time we make sure that Congress come home and pass the legislation funding NATO.
He meant to say NATO. This is why Kamala is at Munich. This is why Kamala is out there meeting with King Abdullah.
I mean, there's not enough time in this show for us to play every one of those just horrifying mix-up that he's been engaging in recently. And I also find it every time he talks about keeping his word, it rings so hollow, considering that we abandoned Americans in Afghanistan. We abandoned our Afghan ally. The list is so long of those who we have abandoned under his watch that we gave our word to. I want to make 2 points, though, about the Democrats and the Republicans here and coming up. Number one is that to the Democrats, it's all about strategy. And you mentioned the former Obama speechwriter, and what he was quoting, he said, the challenge is we just don't know. Is it riskier to have someone maybe a little less well-known come in there and take Biden's place, right? It's all about strategy. And you contrast that, remember that the largest percentage of people who voted for Trump in the Iowa primary, for example, they reported that they voted for Trump because he fights for people like me. There's an ideological commitment that Trump supporters have to him. And for the Democrats, it's all about chess on a chessboard as they play with people's lives. And final point, remember this, that there are more Biden voters who have concerns about his mental acuity reported and polled than there are Trump supporters who have concerns about a potential criminal conviction. So at the end of the day, those willing or who might flee Biden is a whole heck of a lot greater than those who even would consider leaving Trump's side.
Yep, no doubt about it. Well, this evening I will be guest hosting for Sean Hannity tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern. I hope you'll join me. Great. Senator Josh Hawley will be on. So will Tommy Lahren and Joe Concha, who are sitting right here beside me.
Yes.
Oh, cool.
And then, of course, the big legal news as we await any moment a ruling from the Supreme Court on the immunity case with Donald Trump and the ballot disqualification case. A lot of news, a lot on Sean Hannity tonight, 9 p.m. Eastern. Join me.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.